Mark Hunt told the UFC to go and stick it. And what else can we say but Robbie Lawler?
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live from the Isle of Man in the UK. This is John and Mike's MMA Corner.
Mike, Robbie Lawler, that's all I want to say to start off everything. Like, just that name at the moment, with what he's been doing since his reign, or even in fact since his return to UFC, it's just enough to pull in your attention. I can't wait for the UFC 201 card for Robbie Lawler, basically. The other fights, yeah, but that fight alone is just... that gets me interested when he's in the octagon.
Yeah, I'm very interested. You know, it's what can Tyrone Woodley do with that first round, you know, of that explosive power that seems to mainly only be really good in that first round, but then kind of betrays him a little bit.
So we'll go back to that fight, Mike, and we'll talk about it later on when we hit the card, the UFC 201 card. But before we start everything off, like I said, Mark Hunt told the UFC to go stick it, essentially, after the whole, I don't know, let's say the whirlwind that was UFC 200. Brock Lesnar failing once and then twice, 3 times a lady. Hey, Mark Hunt is not impressed. He wasn't impressed the first time. He just literally went off on one. And again, it's not the first time Mark Hunt has had to fight someone who has been medically enhanced, let's say, Captain America style. He went on to the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani, expressed his... Well, I say expressed. Didn't express, Mike, did he? He kind of just let it all out.
Yeah, he didn't hold back. Yeah.
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, he didn't hold back. I mean, I can understand where Mark's coming from, and I honestly believe that himself sacked from the UFC, you know, sacked from his contract, because he's definitely going the right way about it. But he needs to be careful he doesn't find himself on the shelf.
Well, no, he said, like, stuff the UFC.
Yeah, I know, but they don't have to stuff him. They can shelve him. It's... Yeah, I mean, I can understand where he's coming from. This is a guy who got injured in a fight where his opponent tested positive and ended up being shelved longer than it was the first Bigfoot fight. He got a shoulder injury, and Bigfoot ended up serving his suspension and fighting before Mark Hunt had recovered from his shoulder injury. So I can understand his frustration. And it does kind of hurt your...
Integrity would be a right way to look at it. Mark Hunt.
What I was going to say was, so he came to the UFC later in his career. Obviously, he had a fantastic K1 career, and then came to obviously mixed martial arts and the UFC sort of later on. So time is not on his side. So there's the fight was a draw, then becomes a no contest. So there's a fight where he can't call it a win on his record, but he's had to spend a fight camp and then time injured and so time recovering, where, you know what I mean? You don't mind so much if you're putting a W and climbing that little bit closer towards a title shot or more meaningful fights, shall we say.
Yeah, it's a sticky situation for the UFC because they've not commented, understandably why. It's like, what do you do? Like, you don't spout off about Mark Hunt.
They don't want to, like, yeah.
And it's tough one. I want to see this weekend with UFC 201 if anyone mentions it and if anyone tries to bring it up or try to get a response back. I want to know how they approach it because...
How they deal with it, yeah.
You've got to think, Brock Lesnar, he only came for the one fight anyway, and he ain't going to be... he's going to be there after because he's got a suspension. But Mark Hunt is. So you got to figure Mark Hunt, Mike, is your product now. He is a product, and you can sell him still. You can make money from him, but you can't make money from Brock. So do the UFC sit down and go, do you know what? We did throw all our eggs into one basket. We probably fucked that one up. Let's go back. Let's try and kiss, hug, and make up. And let's sort this out for Mark Hunt and try and maybe spin it around towards a good light for him.
And the only way you're going to do that is with a public apology now, and fact check in the post.
Well, he did get $500,000 anyway for that fight. So
yeah, I think he wants a share of that $2.5 million that was heading towards Brock.
It was heading towards Brock.
I think that's what he wants a share of.
Yeah,
because
I think
that's a hell of a lot more than $500,000.
It is. They might compensate him in a way. I don't know. Maybe if they'll look.
And and also like I know some of it was like he was. I heard him say at least once he was talking about the gas that Brock had in the third round.
Yeah.
And I know he feels that. So Mark is probably thinking, hang on, that's a fight that maybe I should have won if he wasn't fueled on.
I can kind of half agree with him. Only the reason I say half agree is because in that second round, no one did anything. Like the second round, that was 5 minutes of everyone's life just went by. Nothing happened. Essentially, not a lot happened. Mark landed a couple of shots in that round, but for me, I felt that second round was a round where Mark was so focused on that takedown that he did not release any triggers, and Brock had the time to just go around, relax, get a breath back, get the energy. Third round came, and when it basically, because Brock knew he had a third round in him, because he had that rest, he could just expel himself for that. And I think that's probably what more likely was the scenario. I don't think there was the extra cardio in it for him from taking
possibly. You know, it's
drugs don't make you doesn't give you more VO2. It doesn't make you suddenly make your cardio. Like EPO will help improve the cardio side of things. Performance enhancing drugs are more of a case, majority-wise anyway, it's more of a recovery scenario.
Yeah, I think with markets, like with anyone, if you know your opponent has cheated, then ultimately you think, well, then surely I should have won that fight. I could have won that fight because the other person cheated. So without that person cheating, they ultimately think, well, I would have won if they hadn't cheated. Even though there's no guarantees of that, but, you know. And to be honest with you, a lot of people were picking Mark to win that fight beforehand.
Yeah, rightly so, because he is the experienced martial artist. You have Brock Lesnar who'd been out for 5 years, whatever it was. That is a logical bet to put on. I favoured Mark Hunt in the sense of, for that specific reason, because he'd been around for so long, he'd done X, Y, and Z. It wasn't that anyone got it wrong. It was just that if Brock could have landed the takedowns like he did, he's a far better wrestler than, say, Stipe Miocic. And Stipe got what he did against Mark was to getting him down and grinding him. If Brock was able to apply that, then that was clearly what was going to happen. And that was all it was. If Mark could stay up, he was going to win. If it went down the ground, it was Brock's game. So it was never a shock. It was just that it's more favourable to pick Mark Hunt.
Yeah.
But then again, if it was literally two sides of a coin, I'm interested to see what happens this weekend. I hope they mention it. I hope that not even the UFC mention it. I hope that someone brings it up. That it has to be
yeah. I mean, like you've got press conferences where you're open to a lot wider media, shall we say? And you know what? It's not hidden away behind doors. So once it's said, it's got to be dealt with. You know what I mean? You can't unsay it.
No, you cannot unsay it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go, Mike, then to this weekend. There's a couple of events on. In fact, there's actually more than the two events we're going to talk about. RFA are on as well. Also, by the way, you might not know this, but the World Series of Fighting have got an event on. No one's talking about it. Even though, to be fair,
it's a secret.
This UFC 201 card is probably the weaker of all the pay-per-view cards they could have. There is very, 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 very small talk of the World Series Fighting event. That shows how little power and effect that promotion is still having in the game, claimed to be the third biggest promotion. It's only on the financial side of things. Anyhow, that's just me having a little bitch about them. Let's go to the Invicta card, Mike. There's a handful of fights. I'll put it out. There's a couple of fights on there that I'm looking forward to. Ladies and gentlemen, tune in for this fight card because UFC Fight Pass have it. It's awesome watching their cards because they have some great matchups and it's really good production value. The whole thing's run well. Let's start with my pick is Megan Anderson against Peggy Morgan because I love Megan Anderson's bits. She is a phenomenal girl who's training at a very good gym with Mr. James Krause heading the way at Glory MMA. She's doing, she's growing, she's developing. I'm hoping though that Megan in this fight, for me, can work on that. The only thing she was lacking was a head movement, and as much as she thinks she's got it, I think she still needs a lot of work on that head movement. She is very, very for someone who's got a very highly good striking. She's very open to shots, but Peggy Morgan, she's probably going to get starched in this one. I don't see Peggy Morgan winning this, Mike, at all.
No, it's they haven't had the greatest run, have they? Peggy. It's, no. And where she normally has height and reach advantages, they're kind of out the window in this fight. It's a lot more level playing field. Not that
it goes to skill set on this fight rather than distance with reach, but also maybe Peggy Morgan. She was in the Ultimate Fighter. She didn't do enough in the house. She didn't do enough after. I just don't feel.
And to be honest with you, I don't think she neutralises her height and reach enough anyway.
No, not at all. But not a lot of fighters do. It actually is surprising how small the number of fighters who actually use what they have as their weapons. A lot of fighters just like to fight close because it's just what they think they need to do. Maybe sometimes they just like to get that dogfight in, and when in actual fact, the best thing to do tactically is just to keep that distance, keep that range.
I was going to say, you would think you would have a bit of sense in your corner somewhere, saying to you, right, let's look at your recent fights and doing it that way. That shit's not working. So let's really try and drum it into you to. There must be somebody.
They are, Mike, but the problem is when you're in there, game plans, theories, everything just
go out the window.
Not out the window, it just goes out into space, and then you just go in there, fight, and then afterwards you go, oh, why did I do that? And it just, you just switch when you're in there. Sometimes just.
But that's where that professionalism has to try and sort of be drummed into you over. The weeks and weeks of preparation. You need to sort of say, try and... I mean, you get the fighters that are really good at sticking to a game plan, and...
Well, then, sometimes,
And the shit works, and then you see some people that you think, so why are they doing that?
Sometimes you get clipped, and it just releases something in you, and it triggers you, and you go, fuck this, and you go, fuck...
Well, yeah, I mean, you get some people that they're better gym fighters than they are on the night fighters, and it's...
And a girl also on the card who's fighting Megan Anderson is Cindy Danduis, and she is taking on Jessamine Duke. Jessamine Duke, I can't believe she's still fighting. I don't know. I don't think she's particularly the kind of fighter that will be around long. She's aesthetically... I think she was a model off the top of my head, Mike, when she was in Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, she was.
I don't think she's that model-esque, but then again...
But again, she likes to mix it, and... unfortunately,
Cindy beat Megan, and I think Cindy's been out for a little while. She's been jumping and begging for a fight. Finally got a fight against Jessamine Duke. Perfect fight for her. I think Cindy would probably go in, get the finish, go home with another win under her belt, where she will probably want have her try and get a shot at that 145 belt. Whether it'll happen, I don't know, but I hope it does for her. She's an absolute top draw girl. And those two fights for me kind of stick out. You've also got Alexia Grosso and Jodie Escobar, a very good fight in itself. Two very highly talented women. Two women who you should all be looking out for, because all these girls that you see on this card anyway are not all future prospects, but some of them are future potentials to go over to the UFC. They can make it on a bigger stage. You don't know yet, because we don't know if they're going to add new fight weight classes like the 125, Mike. They might add the 125 division eventually, and if that happens, some of these girls who maybe 135 might go, well, I can make 125. It's probably more better suit, and I could probably go in there. Like Sarah Kaufman got released, and she said she's heading down to 125. She got released from UFC. She'll probably go to 125. She'll probably get signed back to Invicta.
Who's having her pro debuts. She lost her first amateur fight and then strung together 11 wins in her amateur. Quite a lot of finishes. So, I'm excited to see how she does. She's up against somebody called Sinja Eubanks, who's 1-1, who lost her last fight on points. And also we've got Aspen Ladd fighting Jessica Hoy. Both girls are undefeated. Obviously, Aspen Ladd's 3-0 with Jessica's 1-0. So someone's always got to go nice and early in their career.
Yeah,
which isn't always a bad thing.
There's one fighter that he's seen over the time. It's awesome, and it's always good, Mike.
I think this will be a fun fight to watch. I think it'll be good.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mike. Let's go to the UFC 201 card. I'm sure you know a bit more on the fighters on that card.
A little, but to be honest, I still love Invicta. So
right, okay then. Let's test out this then. The prelim card or the UFC Fight Pass card, let's put it that way, is the weakest one I've seen for a long time. They used to make they were selling it hard for a while. They put a bit of effort into it, and all of a sudden now it feels like this card.
Yeah.
It was just struggling. I was surprised they didn't put someone like Jorge Masvidal and Ross Pearson down on it. Or
I was just going to say that fight would have slotted in for your Fight Pass really well. They're both going to go at it.
Yes, so it's not happening. So, Mike, the co-main event originally was going to obviously be Demetrius Johnson against Wilson Reis. It didn't happen because Demetrius got injury. Wilson Reis actually had an opponent who came in, but the opponent couldn't get medicals to clear him to fight in time. So now he's got Hector Sandoval. Now this one is a great opportunity for Hector to step in because Wilson Reis is talked about his disappointment about not fighting Demetrius Johnson or kind of title fight. He's fighting a newcomer, etc. It is almost like the ample opportunity to take advantage of a guy who's about to fight for a title and get a win. I know it's a tough ask, but at the same time, Hector's got one hell of a chance for him to take this kind of UFC debut by the scruff of the neck and make the most of it.
Yeah, and we've seen things like this happen before where, even with a loss, you can really win people over with, you can win with a loss if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm making sense.
If you have a good fight, you have like a fight of the
night. Yeah, fight your socks off and, be entertaining and all the rest of it. And, I'm excited to see how it goes down. And what's he got to lose? He's got nothing to lose,
No, he's got nothing to lose. Mike, let's talk about, like I said, we mentioned it before, but Jorge Masvidal against Ross Pearson. Jorge Masvidal's opponent, which was it Lorenz Larkin? No, it wasn't Lorenz. No, he lost his decision to Lorenz Larkin, sorry. I'm forgetting who his opponent. Oh, Tim Means now? Yeah, Jorge Masvidal's opponent pulled out. My memory's going blank on who it was.
I think it might have been.
Anyway, Ross Pearson literally fought Will Brooks in a 3-round decision. Didn't take much damage. In fact, neither party really took much damage in that fight. And Ross Pearson said, look, I'm game to step up and fight at 170. Jorge Masvidal, it's a smart move by Pearson because Jorge was a 155 himself when he went up to 170. It's the same for Ross Pearson. So I don't feel like that fight is too much. Like, it's not like he's stepping in there and he's fighting
against somebody coming down from middleweight or something. I
think it's a safer fight for Ross Pearson, and in the sense of it's not like a monster. Now, it's a tough fight but the thing is, he's got the fight he wants. Jorge Masvidal, beautiful boxing, smooth, technical boxing, nice footwork. Ross Pearson loves the kickbox. The pair of them can just swing. Now, Jorge Masvidal's not had a lot of luck recently with decisions. It seems whenever of late he gets a decision, he loses it on a split. Ross Pearson, I don't see it going like a finish. I see it going the whole 3 rounds. I see it in. I think the pair of them are just too tough to probably get finished. If anyone is going to get stopped, it's probably going to be, in my opinion, be Ross Pearson, due to the fact that Jorge is so tough and he's got such good hands. Like, it's a bit underrated because of late the results he's had, but he is a game fighter, and I love the matchup. The pair of them stepping in.
I was going to say that would be my potential fight of the night, but to be honest with you, I think the fact that Robbie Lawler's on the card, that might just still fight of the night because he's just never crap, never boring. So take away that main event, you would pick.
You got second place. You got a chance to get second place, Mike.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Silver medal.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, should one of them come out and have an early finish in that main event, I think that opens the door for that fight to take fight the night.
Mike. Ed Herman, Nikita Krylov. 205 bouts. Ed Herman stepped up to 205. Ed Herman's last bout, his last win was against Mr. Tim Boach. And Nikita Krylov, his last win was, it's put down as a rear naked choke, but it wasn't. It was actually a neck crank because he just cranked them. Well, it was more like a compression rather than a choke on the jaw. Or anyway, but he got his last win against a black belt in Brass. Well, I call it Brasso, his name, but the way they pronounced it, foot nose. Anyhow, it's Brazilian dude, Brazilian cat, black belt. So it's a good win for him. Nikita Krylov, though, go on, Mike. You have a quick spit on it, and then I'll jump in.
I mean, a bit of feedback. Ed Herman, you never know which Ed's going to turn up. So, yeah, I think Ed's finished, and then he comes out and has a stonking win, and you think, okay, there's a bit left. He is in the twilight of his career now, you know. But you have to ask yourself, is there, does he have one more good win left in him? I don't know. He surprised me last time, but
Ed Herman, the thing is with Ed Herman, he is so tough, dude, and he is so.
He's relied on that toughness to win fights, and you can only rely on your toughness for so long. One day that betrays you, and it's not there anymore.
He's fighting a guy though, Nikita Krylov, who, if you watch Nikita Krylov's fight, he isn't a polished fighter. Nikita Krylov leaves a lot of openings, not only in grappling, which Ed Herman would probably have the field day with, but actually in the striking department as well. Now, Nikita Krylov is very aggressive in the strike, and he likes to put the pressure on to kind of over-swarm you. But Ed Herman's the guy who will like to bite back. I would not be shocked at all if you've seen Ed Herman get the finish in this fight. And not just striking, maybe I think possibly the grappling side of things. Ed Herman's got a legit ground game. And Nikita Krylov, I know he's got a lot of finishes, but he has so many holes on the ground.
And he finishes at heavyweight as well.
Yeah, Nikita Krylov can fight guys, and he leaves a lot of openings. But when you get a guy who's probably on that higher echelon in MMA terms, he's not going to get away with those gaps. He's not going to get away with those holes and opportunities he leaves. He is not the finished product yet. It's a beautiful fight. Like, people don't understand. This is a beautiful fight to have, because I think you'll actually see two guys just standing up and beating the living snot out of each other. But anyway, that's my opinion on it.
And it's kind of like that crossroads period, you know what I mean? You've got a guy that's towards the end against a guy that's still trying to establish himself within that UFC division.
Next up, kicking off the UFC fight pay-per-view of 201 is Ian McCall, Justin Scoggins. This is, Mike, it's almost like a passing of the guard. I
was going to say, changing the guard, but does Ian McCall have that, we know he's been cursed with injuries of late,
A little bit. He's got a hook for a finger.
He's got a hand he definitely can't use for any sort of late night sort of.
No, it's actually, Mike, it's perfect. Mike, it's perfect.
No. Baby size, remember.
Mike,
but anyway, he's obviously been sitting on that hand too much. He's kind of wrecked it.
So, Mike, let's go with. Yeah. So, go on, Mike. Go on. Go with Ian McCall. Go on.
Oh dear, you know what? It's. I hope he's. His movement is fantastic. He's got that in and out movement, very good quickness. But he's fighting a guy that's so young in the sport, But I still think that he can, he can put it together and get a win here. I hope, it's. I think Ian might be just a slightly more complete fighter.
Stylistically, what do you think about the fight, though?
I just think Ian does a little bit more of everything. I think, obviously, Scoggins with youth on his side, but he doesn't seem to. he's not a finisher. You know what I mean? It's I don't know. I don't know if I'm being biased because I'm a fan of Ian McCall a little bit, but you know, I'm going to side with Ian. I'm going to side with him.
Look,
I hope.
With Justin Scoggins, what you have is a guy who has the same stylistic techniques as Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, the kind of taekwondo, karate point scoring technique. It works super well for him in his fights. He has lost before, obviously. He got armbarred by John Moraga. Also, he recently has a couple of wins under his belt. The thing is, he uses range really well. He's long. He is a tall dude for that weight class. He's another long guy, kind of like Schmolka, but he used it to his advantage. He uses kicks very well, uses that range smartly. So that's the tough thing you've got. You've got Ian McCall. How is Ian McCall going to close that distance down?
Well, I think because he does do that darting in and out with that such good speed of moving in and out, I think he might be able to neutralise that sort of that distance, I hope, you know.
So with Ian McCall, you have a guy, like we said before, he's a bit injury torn. He was smart enough to take enough time away recently to get his... He basically had enough time... He took the time away to find out if his body was right to compete again.
Yeah, he was...
Now, he mentioned the word retirement a couple of times in interviews, spoke about it himself with us, but I've spoken to him about it off air, and the reason why he mentions it is not because of his will to fight or his want to fight. It's of a physical aspect. Because I've heard people say, "Oh no, when you speak retirement, you should step out." And I agree. I am so down. If you're thinking, "Oh man, I'm going to retire," or "I want to maybe should retire," I agree. Maybe you should either take time away and think about what your decision is, or you know, but with this circumstance, it's not a retirement because he doesn't want to compete. It's a retirement because the dude's body physically won't let him do what he wanted to.
Yeah, he's not. He was even struggling to have a fight camp. You know, it's
now that he, you know, I don't know how, in a percentage of how healed up he is, because I'm sure he has possibly got stuff that's going on he's not going to talk about. Either way, if he is at his optimal best that he can be, he should be the smarter, more experienced and knowledgeable fighter. Because Ian McCall has fought a lot higher technical fighters than Justin Scoggins. This is a huge scalp for Scoggins in comparison to McCall. Scoggins, you know, he's beat a couple of guys who, in terms of rankings or even names, on flyweight top guys. McCall's fought with the best guys within that weight class. He's got a very solid wrestling game, Ian McCall. He's got lovely kind of combinations and also mixing it up with the footwork. And I think, though, with Justin Scoggins, I think what you might find is there might be a clash in this fight where there's not a lot of action because they're cancelling each other out because their styles aren't the same, but there is a similarity in the way they like to move in towards their attacks, which could work in Scoggins' favour because if McCall comes in, Scoggins has got the reach to get the counters in. I see a decision in this fight, if I'm honest with you, and that's probably where I see the fight go. Yeah, I see a decision going on this one. Where to, I can't say. It's.
Go on, you have to.
If I have to, I'd probably go with McCall for experience. Even though Scoggins is on that rise up, and he is a talented kid, and he's on that rise up, I think if McCall is at his optimal best, yes. But he's holding injuries that we don't know about, which restrict his movement, restrict his performance.
Which is there's a high chance of that being the case. Like I think Ian will time Justin on when he does zip in and out, and you know, a couple of takedowns down the road, or you know, a couple of strikes landed.
So, Mike, what fight next up is it that's tickling your taste buds then?
Well, we've got Matt Brown against Jake Ellenberger, which...
Okay.
Oh, yeah, you know, this fight potentially... You know what? If both guys turn up to what we know they can do, this could be a thriller. An absolute thriller, barn burner. But it depends who turns up. I feel Matt Brown will turn up. It's just whether Jake Ellenberger turns up, because Jake, on his day, can be ferocious. But it's just whether he does or not.
Yeah, he can't. My issue with Jake Ellenberger is that since 2012, Mike, he's beat 3 guys. All right?
Yeah.
Can you name them?
Not off the back of my hand.
Okay.
No.
He
Exactly.
beat Josh Koscheck, who was on his way out.
Yep.
He beat, who basically wanted out. You had a guy he beat in 170 called Nate Marquardt, who was cutting too much to get down to 170 anyway. And you had a guy called Jay Haron. I think those aren't the kind of killers that Matt Brown's been mixing with, if I'm honest with you. Matt Brown has lost to 3 guys, okay? You have Johnny Hendricks, Robbie Lawler, and Damian Maia, okay? So they're pretty legit.
Yeah, and to be honest, even in those losses, he did well. You know, even in the loss to Damian Maia, he did well to survive as long as he did on the ground.
Yeah. But
you know, so I got praise from there. You know, if it took Damian Maia that long, you know.
The only thing going in Ellenberger's favour is that he was jumping between camps and, you know, switching all things up all the time. He's found a home, as he likes to say, with King's MMA. And, you know, Rafael Cordero, I can't speak enough high praise of that man. He's been training with, Jake Ellenberg is one of his top or, you know, most common sparring partners was Beneil Dariush, who's a legit top lightweight in the UFC. That will have helped him, but I feel that he needs a little bit longer at King's MMA. Usually it's about a few fight camps before it starts to shine through. Matt Brown has been at Muscle Farm, is it called Muscle Farm Elevation Gym? It's basically where TJ Dillashaw, Neil Magny popped up to and stuff like that, where, you know, they've got top facilities, etc. They've got very good coaching, sports, science goes into it very much so, but I would probably favour Matt Brown in the sense of Matt's just so.
Well, he comes in fight ready to have a scrap, because against
he is literally willing to die to get that win.
Oh yeah, he's having a throwdown, and with Jake, I don't think it's a training thing. I think it's a psychological thing. You know, it's because you hear good things about him in training. In training, he's like a beast. But
it is. I
on
think
fight night, you can see that he's sort of like, you know, fish out of water sometimes. But
I think Matt will just break him down. Mike, okay, then let's go to what next fight that appetites you and get your little taste buds watering.
Well, we got Rose Namajunas, who, you know, she can't have a title fight far away now. I wouldn't think, you know, obviously as long as she does win. And to win this fight, she has to put the first loss on somebody's record, because, oh my God, Carolina? We'll call her Carolina. Yeah. Okay, she hasn't lost yet. But having said that, Rose is looking like, you know, she's looking great of late. You know, she looked very good against Paige. You know, a tough fight in the last, but still did well. You know, I don't know. I think things are coming together for Rose at the moment. I think she's really finding herself, and everything seems to be starting to click in for her. And I think she's starting to believe that she can fight for that title. You know, and you know, probably even starting to believe that she can win that title.
What's your thoughts on, you know, that's Rose, but what's your thoughts on Carolina? It's a bit biased there, Mike.
Well, of course it is. I'm always biased to Rose. You know.
And your thoughts on Carolina
I'm. Where are you? Yeah, as I said,
her as a fighter, just her fighting style. Let's just talk about her.
Well, she's still unbeaten, so what she does works, but she doesn't tend to finish fights. You know, she tends to sort of go in there. I don't know. I think Rose will try and make this, you know, try and make it maybe even a little bit scrappy. You know, try and bring her into a bit of a, you know, the trenches sort of thing on this one. You know, it's. I don't know. It's it's a tough one, but I've got to side with Rose.
Right. Okay.
And it looks like I'm on my own again.
With the amazing, she's just from Poland, obviously, and Kowalewicz. How's it pronounced again? Sorry, Kowalewicz, I believe it was off the top of my head. Sorry. Anyway, she's coming to UFC. Like Mike said, you said she's undefeated, and she is a very good fighter. Her striking is what's so good. Her combinations and her output is absolutely top draw. Fantastic stuff. The girl will put out combinations, and she's got such a good cardio base with that persistent striking. It's what makes her stand out for me. And she is a very good girl, in my opinion, in that kind of strawweight division. She trained Muay Thai for a while, so she's got, she did amateur, then she turned a bit pro in the kind of Muay Thai scene. Sorry about this, my throat's a little bit dry now. Anyhow, so she went a few years undefeated in that sense as well. Then she turned over to the MMA side of things. So striking-wise, yes, Rose has got good striking. She has got good striking. But it's not something Carolina's probably not seen before. It's this grappling side of things that will probably change things up. I think you'll see Rose use the strikes to get the takedown, and if she can get the takedown, then she'll start to manipulate that game. I think Carolina as well, she's stepping up against the girl in Rose. She's not the same girl as Heather Jo Clark, who she fought last. And Heather Jo Clark was just tough in the fight, but she was never technically good enough to win that fight. And if I'm honest, Heather Jo Clark's not the kind of girl who's going to rock that strawweight division up a bit more. But don't get me wrong, you could see Carolina really rock Rose if she stays up on her feet for too long. But yeah, Rose is a very, very talented girl, but let's not push everyone up to the title straight away. Look what happened with Paige. Look, I think Rose, just take your time.
I think she's going at the right sort of pace at the moment. It's small increases.
This fight could decide who fights Joanna next. It could very much so depend on the performance as well. And I would not be surprised. I think this probably potentially is a title contender fight. It's just not. It's all dependent on the performance. I think depending on which person can shine and put on a hell of a performance. Because if it's a close fight, I would debate they wouldn't have that person fight for the title next, but it probably is. Mike, let's go to the main event. There's only one word to say, is Lawler, or Ruthless, as we could say, taking on Tyron Woodley. Let's get your perspective, breakdown, and look at it.
Right, okay. Tyron Woodley he's like one of the most frightening first-round fighters in the division. He'll give you the worst 5 minutes of your life. But then he seems to go off the boil a little bit. That cardio for thing. And the fact that this is also a 5-round fight, sort of, like Robbie Lawler in this second stretch of the UFC is a better version of the first one that we had. We've got a guy he is ruthless. With Robbie, it comes down to sensible training, like how they do like minimal sparring, just do what's needed to do. Clearly Robbie knows how to fight, so what he does is he's quite economic with the amount of damage he'll allow himself to take in a fight camp. So he does come in fairly fresh, and I think like we know that Robbie can do 5 hard rounds, taking crazy damage. And I don't think Tyron Woodley can give him 5 hard rounds. I think he can give him a frightening first round. But I don't know. I mean, will Tyron Woodley sort of throw all his eggs in one basket and go for broke in that first round? Or, you know what I mean? Because even if he's economical, Robbie Lawler's not going to be economical because he knows he can come out of the traps and go hard at it from the word go and still be going hard at it in that last round. And sometimes like we've seen him finish top-rate guys in that last round. So, you know, he can even come back, you know, from behind to win.
So, what's your perspective on the result that could happen, or
I think that Robbie Lawler finishes Tyrone Woodley somewhere between fourth and fifth rounds, maybe even the third, depending on how much damage he can sort of start putting down, sort of second and third rounds. I think we might even get a Tyrone Woodley that goes into his shell and starts defending from as early as the second round and further into the fight. But I'd
like to think he'll be defending from the very start, considering who he's fighting.
Yeah, well, no, I think he might go for broke a little bit for those first 2 minutes, but as soon as Robbie Lawler starts landing back, I think Tyrone Woodley will go into his oh shit moment. We've seen him do it to... Oh, come on, brains. He did it to Rory McDonald. He went into his shell against Rory McDonald.
Look at Google.
It wasn't Google, good old... I had it right in front of me and I forgot to look. Rory McDonald pretty much put him into his shell, and I think this is what we're going to see on Saturday night. And I think Robbie... But what I think is the fact that he's got 5 rounds of this, I don't think you can just defend against Robbie Lawler for 5 rounds, because he is going to beat on you for those 5 rounds.
Right, okay. There's a handful of things here to consider, Mike, that you haven't mentioned, right? Robbie Lawler, yes, we know what he offers. We know what he brings to the table. You don't know what Tyrone Woodley brings to the table, because Tyrone Woodley has been out for about 530 days-ish or something like that.
Yeah. As soon as he knew he was getting a title shot, he went on the shelf and stayed there.
Mike, he's had 530 days to train, to develop, to grow, to add things to his arsenal that we do not know he has. Robbie Lawler, we kind of pretty much know what he's going to bring. Look at Cain Velasquez, out for a long time, injuries, come back, spinning wheel kick. No one saw that coming, and he did it. There's a very much an unpredictable Tyrone Woodley is going to come to the fight. There is possibly still that angle of you can knock him into a shell. There is possible that he could maybe have that 1 round of explosive power and he can get it out of the way. Or there could be a Tyrone Woodley that just comes out and is a completely different fighter. He is a very dangerous, unknown guy compared to what we used to know. Now, I still feel aggrieved that he's getting a title fight. He got a decision win against Kelvin Gastelum, who was dog crap anyway. Secondly, as well, he didn't beat Carlos Condit, right? It gripes me when I see it. He did not beat him. Basically, Carlos Condit, knee buckled, his ACL popped, or his MCL, whichever one it was, popped when the two of them grappled and went to the ground because his knee stayed on. His knee jolted because his foot was stuck in the ground. The bodies fell. Then he got up, kept fucking fighting. Then he just got kicked in the leg because Tyrone Woodley saw it was there. And then that was it then. His leg went. It's not beating someone. No, you didn't break his knee because you knew you were going to do that on a fall down. Get out of here. Secondly, the win against Young Kim, where he punched him in the back of the head. Yes, he punched him in the back of the head because he went in for the spinning back fist or elbow king did. And at the same time, Tyrone Woodley went for a counter right, and it cracked him in the back of the head. Now, it's not an illegal shot because if you're moving and the strike comes, that's fair. It's a fair shot, people. But at the same time, if he didn't crack him in the back of the head, guess what? He might have taken that punch a bit better. He might not have got knocked out like he did. But you punch anyone in the back of the head full throttle, they're going to drop like a sack of spuds, and that's them completely discombobulated. So those two fights, I write them off because I'm like, look, that's just getting into those fights to get us wins.
And also, I was going to say also, I mean, you spoke a little bit like, you know, with those 500 years that he's had out, you know, that you can work on his
years. Yeah.
That, do you know what? If you do try and change things up, you kind of like to have a fight to sort of see how this shit works. You know what I mean? I know you can do this in training, but it's not the same thing, you know. And the fact that he's been out for such a long time.
Well, he's been training with Duke Rufus. Okay,
I know, but you've got the likes of
Zach Cummings. He's been working a lot with Zach Cummings as well. So he's had top guys to basically replicate what he wants to use. So it's not like he's been able to experiment with anyone like nobody's. He's been training with some top guys.
No, I know. But Robbie Lawler, he's got that tried and tested toughness, you know.
Oh, he does, he does, but there is, when it comes to an unknown, that is a very dangerous weapon to have. When you know what someone's bringing, you can prepare yourself a lot better. I'm not saying that's an advantage actually to Tyron Woodley. The advantage to Robbie Lawler is he's been out for
that thing that he does bring is pretty damn scary.
Oh, no,
it's
30 days, and it's going to be a 5-round fight. The word ring rust, I think, can play a major factor because if Robbie Lawler wanted to, he could just dogfight that, grab him, grapple with him. But like Tyron Woodley's not great.
You
could try to tie around, gas him out, and get into the third or fourth round. We know Robbie's game. He's just going to be straight up. I want to smash your face in and let's go for it. But the fight, at first, I was like aggrieved by it. I still am. But there are some interesting, intricate details to look at. But at the same time, I'm going to go with Robbie because I want Robbie to win. Because I don't think Tyron Woodley deserves that title shot, and he does not deserve to be the welterweight champ because he is not the top welterweight guy out there.
Yeah, he was kind of promised a fight by means of.
Well, he was meant to fight Johnny Hendricks, and the winner was going to
he missed weight and
make weight, so he then got the title shot.
Yeah, which
he fought Kelvin Gastelum, got an injury, had to step away, and the earliest fight he could have was against Johnny Hendricks. I want to say 1-9. I want to say 192, but I could be wrong. It could be even earlier. But anyway, I think that's when he could do it, but then that fell through, etc., and all this palaver. So since the Kelvin fight and that fight falling through, he's actually had that like an extended period out. So yeah.
How do you believe it will actually go? So if I said to you, right, Gordon, script this one, how do you see the fight going down?
I think Tyron will probably win that first round, due to the fact that Robbie's not going to know what's going to happen. In a sense, he's going to fight, but I think Tyron will try to surprise him with maybe a couple of new movements, a couple of new angles, and a handful of new techniques. I think once that round's got over, Robbie's settled himself into what Tyron's going to be trying to do. I think you'll start to see probably Robbie's going to counter more with that strike when Tyron comes in. I think Tyron will definitely want to go for a takedown. He's got such a good wrestling base. The problem is Robbie's got some fucking awesome sprawls, folks. Like, you need to go back and watch some of his recent fights, especially the Hendricks one. That man sprawls hard. So he's got fantastic sprawling. I really think that Tyron's going to have a tough time getting him down, if I'm brutally honest with everyone. And then I think comes to the second round, third round, I think they'll start to get more exchanges.
Heavy breathing.
No, it's not a heavy breathing. I think the explosiveness that Tyron had at the start, he might have to try and pace it. So I don't think it's going to be explosive, Mike. I don't think he's going to shoot a load in the first round.
He either goes for broke or he has to try and be conservative because it is a 5-round fight.
He really won't go for broke. It's a 5-round fight.
It's not wise to go for broke. You know what I mean? Like, that shows that you don't have belief in yourself.
It's not that, Mike. It's just that he knows that if it's a 5-round fight, he will pace it. I think the first round will not be as wild as you think it might be.
No. It's not often that the first rounds are that wild. You know, it's normally sort of second onwards. Like, you know, first is kind of a bit of a feeling out round, but you know.
I think the first round will be quite slow, but I think Tyron will probably get the better of the two. Like I say, when it gets to probably this third round, you'll start to see Robbie come strong. And it's that fifth round. That fifth round is what makes the difference in fights. And what I mean by that is, if you look at Robbie's fifth round fights, Hendricks, Rory, and Condit, he may have not been winning the rounds before that fight, but when it comes to that fifth round and you want to win it, he is the guy.
He's still strong.
That shows you how much he wants it. And he puts in a level of intensity and ferociousness and pressure in that fifth round that no one else can put on, and they just get a bit overwhelmed. The Carlos Condit fight, man, Carlos got cracked a handful of times. I know they did some exchange, but Carlos got rocked as well. They both put everyone online, but Robbie just shows you something in that fifth round. It's just something different, and I do feel like if it ever did get to the fifth round, it won't. you're going to see Robbie all day long. I do think Robbie, third round, probably will get the finish, probably third round, maybe at a stretch to fourth, but I probably think
it's somewhere between the third and fourth, I think.
Yeah, I think I could probably see a TKO, if I'm brutally honest, people. I really do.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there.
That's UFC 201. That's podcast this week. We're back next week. Like I say this, I was going to say this at the start, but comment at the bottom, share this, like this, join in, interact with us, and also jump on to watch the interviews that we've got on this week. I've put it at the start. There'll be a little link in the corner, or that corner, whatever, one of them 2 corners. Jump on, follow. And that's us for this week. We'll be back next week when there'll be hopefully some announcements, which I'm hoping come off. Oh, there was a BT Sport deal that came off for the UFC. That happened. We could talk about it more, but at the same time, it was
pretty much. It's like a continuation almost.
Just for a couple of years, 2-year contract. Also, Joe Rogan signing, getting the UFC for 1 year. It's a rolling contract, but he's only doing US based. He's not traveling. So we'll see how that goes down as well. He's only doing pay-per-view events. So that's going to happen, folks. And that's it. Well, actually, problem is, he said no traveling. UFC Manchester's going to happen, and that's a pay-per-view card. So Joe Rogan, is he going to travel?
Well, he's actually said that he's not even going to go to Brazil to travel.
Yeah, exactly. So he might not come over for the
so
UFC.
It sounds like he pretty much is going to stay just in the US.
Stay in the States.